Um, Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Bennequap Dairy Seminar, our annual dairy seminar. It's under different conditions as was usual, but we'll get on with it anyway. We have three very good speakers lined up. Gavin Hunt, who will talk about improving performance and profit of suppliers and who works at that job every day. We have Padraig Conan, who's the new farm manager in the Gurteen farm, replacing John Sexton. Padraig has had a great year up there, and Gavin will chat to him in the question and answer session. And finally, we'll have Don Crowley talking about milk quality. And I suppose that's timely because of the chlorine-free regulation and thermogenics and milk quality generally. So we'll get on with that. I suppose behind Gavin and Padraig tonight, we were looking at the KPMG annual audit in the Farmers Journal during the year, and we seem to lag our neighbours in terms of milk solids, both Barry Rowe and Dairygold. And considering we're in the middle, you'd wonder why. So Gavin has done some work on that, done some work on the figures, and has put a presentation together to address that issue, we'll say. So without further ado, I introduce Gavin Hunt, improving performance and profit of suppliers. Over to you, Gavin.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dermot. I'll just start off to introduce myself. My name is Gavin Hunt. I'm a dairy advisor in the Co-op. I started the Co-op in February 2019, so I'll be here 2 years now next month. Look, the topic of my presentation this evening is improving suppliers' performance and profit. Just before I start kicking off and getting into it, if you just look down at the bottom of your tabs there, I suppose we're just trying to encourage fellas to participate a small bit more there. So on the questions and answers there, you can type away in your questions, and I'll give you a quick reminder there towards the end. We'll try to take a couple of questions at the end of each presentation, and maybe questions and answers at the end as well. Just a brief outline of my presentation. I'm just going to show you how do we compare, how does Bennequap compare to other co-ops, what areas do we need to improve on, and how can we improve on these areas. As the chairman just mentioned, I suppose the KPMG milk price review, some of you might have seen that in the journal there back in November. I suppose it's very easy to calculate and money paid out by the Co-op divided by the volume supplied. We ranked 5th in 2019. Look, I suppose very disappointing at 34.5 cents per litre. It's been an issue the last couple of years. It's not just this year. In 2018, we were ranked 4th. 2017, we were ranked 4th. 2016, we were ranked 3rd. I suppose suppliers are losing out on large amounts of money. Why are we losing out on this money? Poor fat and protein percentages and failure to meet quality bonuses are the main ones. When we look at Barry Rowe's price there, they're top of the league, and I suppose they've been top there for the last couple of years at 35.29 cents. That's 0.79 cents of a difference between ourselves and Barry Rowe. So it's a big difference. There's a couple of factors that attribute to that as well. Barry Rowe get a slightly higher milk price due to the amount of milk that is paid out. Was it with the milk? They have a slightly higher percentage with the milk. But look, the two main factors that were missing out in the price really is a poor fat percentage compared to Barry Rowe and our failure to meet quality bonuses. So just to put a figure on that then, it's roughly 0.45 centilitre difference compared to Barry Rowe. And if you look at our milk pool in at 140 million litres, that's worth €630,000. So across all suppliers, that's worth €2,625. That's across the 240 suppliers. So that's a lot of money that we're losing out on. Just expanding that in the fat and protein percentage in 2019. Again, very disappointing. As you can see there, we have the lowest fat in the country at 4.05, with the second lowest protein at 3.52%. Combined solids with second lowest in the country again at 7.57%. Look, very, very disappointing. You're looking at the top there at Glanbia, they're 4.25 at average fat, average protein 3.58, and combined solids of 7.83. So look, there's a big gap between ourselves and the top. I suppose we're in a fantastic position with milk price. When we look at our base price, we have a fantastic price, but the likes of Glanbia and Dairygold are bridging the gap, and the milk paid out due to their average fat and protein being well above ours. Look, there's massive room for improvement there, and it is a very disappointing figure to ourselves with the lowest fat in the country. Just to move on then, just to highlight our progress there from 2010 to 2019. So on the first column you see there the Co-op, and then the second column of progress of fat and protein percentage from 2010 up to 2019. So again, look, a very disappointing figure at 0.39. We're just above Lisavard at 0.38. Glanbia have well outperformed us, so have Drina, so have Dairygold. Glanbia up at 0.63 progress in milk fat and protein percentage since 2010. Very disappointing. I suppose we started out back in 2010 at about 7.18 combined solids. Glanbia had a very similar at 7.28. So we really have to outperforming us over the last couple of years. And I suppose just to put figures in that in, how much have we lost versus the Glanbia average? Just the example of the farmer supplying 500,000 litres, what would be worth to us, the average supplier? So if the average supplier in Bandon improved from 4.05 up to 4.25% and increased his protein from 3.52 up to 3.58%, it's worth an extra €5,900 to the farmer. That's nearly €6,000 we're losing out on because we haven't progressed as much as the other crops in the fat and protein percentage. Just a couple of other KPIs I want to touch on there from the crop performance report in 2019. Our average milk solids supplied to the crop in 2019 was 414. The best crop in the country, so the best average was Barry Row at 442. A massive difference of 28 kilos of milk solids there. Again, we're lagging there. 6-week calving rate, it's the second worst in the country at 62%. The best average was Tipperary Co-op at 73%. Calving interval, we're slipping there, 388. Best average is 383 in Dairygold. This is definitely an area that we really need to focus on. Percent of AOI bed replacements, 55%. That figure is very, very poor. The best average is Barry Row at 64%. It's not a coincidence that Barry Row have the highest milk solids and they have the highest percent of AOI bed replacements. That is certainly not a coincidence. Percent of heifers calved at 22 to 26 months. Again, definitely area for improvement there. 64% is our average. The best average is 75% in Tip Co-op. Looking at the herd EBI then, we have the second lowest herd EBI in the country. Dairygold have the top, the best average at 109. Glanbia are just behind them at about 108. And again, cell count, look, we're lacking there a small bit as well at 167. The best average 152 is Barry Row. Look, we're just, I suppose, just to highlight before we move on, what we can do about it is we're falling behind performance compared to other crops. There's a large scope to improve performance and profit. And what I want to discuss next is how can we achieve this. I realise there's a lot of factors attributing to this, but I'm just going to focus on the main ones. Looking at our genetics, genetics is crucial. Breeding contributes half the performance of farmers' gains in dairy herds. Genetic gain from good breeding decisions is cumulative and permanent. Air use is extremely poor in the crop. That is, look, to be honest, I would classify as a shocking figure. 55% of AOI breed replacements in 2019. If we really want to improve, that's something that we really do need to focus on. Progeny from AOI are more fertile, last longer in the herd, produce more kgs of milk solids. We need to increase AOI use and increase the EBI of our herds. Just a study from George Ramsbottom there, improving the EBI. For every €1 increase in EBI, there's an increase of €2 profit per cow. And if you just turn your attention there to the table on the right there, we can see that the EBI is working in the Bandon crop herd. So I was able to put out some data there from the 2019 crop performance report. I just classified the herds is top 25% EBI herds versus the bottom 25% EBI herds. So in the first column there, you see is the top 25%, bottom 25%, and the difference. The average herd EBI 140, bottom 25% have an average herd EBI of 44, 96 euro difference there. 1.89 euro or 1.8 average litres per cow per day of a difference. Average fat and protein supplied is 452 for the top 25% and 372 for the bottom 25%. So that's a massive 80 kilos of milk solids difference between the top 25% and the bottom. Again, the top 25% are receiving 2.75 cents per litre more compared to the bottom 25%. Higher fat percentages, higher protein percentages, 4.2 against 3.88, 3.6 against 3.42. Those cows are also healthier, they have a lower cell count. There's more, those herds are calving more heifers at 22 to 26 months of age. The average 6-week calving rate is 75% for the top 25%. And it's 48 for the bottom 25, so a massive difference there as well. And the calving interval is also a lot lower. Look, and I suppose just looking at that data there, there's a lot of research behind this, but a point EBI itself, but it's fantastic to see that EBI is working in Bannockguap herd as well. And just look what figures on it, 80 kilos of milk solids more for the top 25% herds. That's roughly worth about €350 per cow. For a 100 cow herd, that's €35,000. That is absolutely massive money to be leaving behind. And just moving on from that, I suppose increasing the EBI of the Bannockguap herd will result in more profit for suppliers, and that's why we were launching our breeding advice in 2021. That breeding advice will be available to all suppliers, so there will be assistance in selecting bulls suitable to your herd. Just looking at areas of what areas you need to improve on, really. Examining your EBI report, looking through the crop performance report, looking through the milk recording. Where do you need to improve on? You need to improve on the fat percentages. You need to improve on the protein. You need to focus a bit more on fertility. Just looking at those areas and see where you can improve on. Sire advice from ICBF, we can give a hand to suppliers to run those sire advice. Basically, you're just putting in your criteria and it's selecting the bulls for you. You can match them up to the cows as well, and that can be sent straight to the area technicians handheld. Yeah, I suppose just to put the focus really on picking your team of bulls is crucial. The time needs to be spent selecting the correct bulls. If you're going to the effort of using AI, and if you're not picking the correct bulls, you're really not capitalizing on it. Very, very simple. A 1 hour consult will make a positive impact in the future performance of your herd. It's just the simple things, just to put the time into it and pick the correct bulls. So that assistance is there for suppliers that want to avail of it. Again, very simple grass management, cornerstone to any profitable dairy system. Keeping things simple in the springtime, getting cows out early as possible, get early grass into the diet, filling the energy gaps. Somewhere you're walking the farm regularly, you're trying to target 1,400 kilos of dry matter, holding rotation in 18 to 21 days, you're removing surpluses, and you're supplementing in times of deficits. Very simple in the autumn as well, you're increasing rotation length, you're closing paddocks for the first week of October, and you're making sure you're closing the farm with a suitable average round cover so there's enough grass for the spring. Grass measuring, farmers that are grass measuring are more profitable, they're making more money. You're going to reduce your costs and you will improve production. There is advice and assistance again available for suppliers who want to improve their grass management skills through myself. I recognise a lot of the names coming through in the email, so I've probably worked with a lot of the farmers that are on the call at the moment. So if you're interested in improving your grass management, improving soil fertility, you can give me a ring. So a lot of the fellows that are grass measuring, they give me a phone call. We're able to map the farm, set the farm up in pasture base. I call out maybe a handful of times just to show you how to get up and running, how to interpret the figures, how to use them. And I suppose I'm always at the end of the phone as well. If you're kind of wondering, geez, look, I'm after doing a grass spot there, I'm not sure. Should I be taking bales? Should we wait on? What's growth supposed to be like next week? 2 heads is always better than 1. So look, I'm always at the end of the phone as well. Very simple. You can't manage what you don't measure. The same with milk recording. And I know what Dan will touch on this small as well, so I won't go into too much detail on it. You can't manage what you're not measuring. Only 42% of Bannock milk suppliers are milk recording. That figure is absolutely shocking. 42%. That's something that we really do need to improve on as well. If you're not milk recording, you don't know what cows are making you money. You don't know what cows are costing you money. You can't detect high cell count cows. You can't detect you can't detect high cell count cows, and you can't control your herd's average cell count. You can't make informed breeding decisions. There's some fantastic reports there as well available. I think farmers that are milk recording just need to utilise those a bit better, especially coming up to dry off. Selective dry cow therapy, again, Dan will touch on this in a minute as well, but look, it's a massive problem coming down. I would be worried about most farmers first, when farmers that aren't milk recording. What will happen in 2022? In January 2022, they're banning the use of dry cow tubes, blanket therapy, sorry. So basically you can't go into the vet or the co-op and get, you have 100 cows, you can't get 400 tubes for those cows. That's not going to happen. They're banning the blanket use of antibiotic dry cow tubes. Just to touch on the heifer rearing program as well. Look, again, our figures have been improving over the last couple of years. The heifer rearing program, the aim is to calve down all heifers at 22 to 26 months of age to increase a cow's lifetime profitability. You just turn your attention there to the right hand side, you can see from the lifetime milk production, put into perspective the optimal group. If you're calving down at 22 to 26 months, you're producing 15% more milk over the lifetime. In the table below there, the top, you're calving down at 22 to 26 months, highlighted in red, just showing that cows calving down at 22 to 26 months are lasting longer in the herd. The Bannock average from 2020 calving stats is 70%, and if you look back in 2016, that was 56% calving at 22 to 26 months. Look, it's fantastic to see that there's some improvement happening. I suppose, and the heifer rearing program, the heifers are weighed at key stages throughout their life, so we're just trying to heifers on target 60% mature weight. If they're on target, more of them are going to go on calf, and we're calving down, trying to aim to calve down at 90% of mature weight. And again, advice is available there for suppliers on management from birth all the way through the calving. So look, we're talking about colostrum management, we're talking about calf housing, we're talking about milk replacer feeding, calibrating automatic feeders, setting feed curves, weaning calves, management of grass, management at housing, we're looking at silage quality, we're doing diets, and we're just management all the way from breeding then all the way up to calving. And top farmers participating in the group are calving all their heifers in the month of February at 90% of mature weight. So those heifers that are calving in February, they have more days in milk and they're more likely to last in the herd as well. Just a reminder, this is my second last slide there. So look, if there's any questions, if you just look at the bottom of the page there, you can just type them into the questions and answers slide. Look, just a note, take-home messages really in a bit of an overview. Performance is poor compared to other co-ops. Suppliers are losing out on large sums of money. There is massive scope for improvement over the next few years. I certainly don't want to be sitting here in 4, 5, 6 years' time talking about how Bandon has the lowest fat percentage. I'd like to see that improve, and I'd like to help the suppliers out. We need to focus on increasing profit within the farm gate. Again, we're in a fantastic position with our milk price. We have a fantastic base price at 3.336, but we're not capitalising on that due to our poor solids, and we really do need to increase that. Especially, look, I suppose just in within the dairy industry itself, milk price volatility will be there in the future, and we need to insulate ourselves against that. It's focusing on the key things that are making us money: breeding, grass-fed management, milk recording, getting your young stock right. It is just to focus on those key areas is vital. And again, services are available through the co-op to help achieve these goals. So look, if I can help you out with anything, or if there's any feedback or any questions like that, just my contact details are there. So look, thanks for listening, and look, if there's any questions, we can answer them.
Thank you, Gavin. If there are any questions, yeah. So Gavin, you keep an eye on them coming in. If I could just comment there, I suppose, like Gavin said, he joined us 2 years ago. One of the things he's done quite a lot of is grass measuring, and I'm one of the people that he helped at that, and he certainly was a great help to get me on the road. I suppose, you know, I'm not saying I'm brilliant at it, but I think I can do reasonably well now. I also joined the heifer rearing program, and I think if there's one thing it does, it evens up your batch of heifers, because Gavin is a great man to keep on top of it. And you kind of get into the good habits as time goes on and do it right. I suppose it's a bit worrying that, and you'd wonder, the fact that we are getting more or less the best price in the country. Are we a little bit careless in the good years? We don't have the hunger to improve the solids and things like that. So I suppose there's a bunch of farmers who don't think about that, and I suppose as a co-op, it's our responsibility to try and push it and help people along as best we can. Another thing that's maybe underused, or sometimes it's busy, I suppose, is the lab in Kinsale. It's open for people who want to sample grass or silage or whatever, and any of the reps or Gavin will look after that, and they provide a very good, efficient service. So I highly recommend it to anybody. You know, certainly do the silage coming into the winter, and I think a phone call to Gavin as well worth anyone's while if they want a bit of help. So yeah, do you have any question there, Gavin?
There's just one question after coming through there. Look, are the AI bulls being used and proven over the last couple of years? Look, there was one very positive figure to take from, which I haven't mentioned in my slide, from the 2019 figures. We actually, our AI use, EBI of the average bulls use was the highest in the country for the crop average. Look, that was a very positive figure, but it's just to get more fellas using AI. Again, 55% of suppliers using AI. That's one figure we really do need to improve on. There doesn't seem to be any more questions coming through, Dermot. Look, if there is any questions, look, we just at the bottom of the page in the questions and answers. If you can just submit your questions there, we can get them at the end if you think of anything.
One other thing there, Gavin, while we're at it, I suppose we do have an efficiency. We do have a subcommittee dealing with this in the co-op, and obviously Gavin is our main man there. In the Bandon Herd, there are a lot of stock bulls, and their EBI is disappointing. Maybe, Gavin, do you want to talk on that subject a bit?
Yeah, look, I suppose is we can look there's multiple studies out there to show that benefits of EBI, but look, we can see from our own figures, and we can see within our own herds that the EBI is working. Again, stock bulls are a lot less profitable compared to AI, and look, I suppose I would be encouraging farmers to improve their EBI, and the best way to do that is to use AI.
Okay, thanks, Gavin. So our next speaker, or our next part, is Gavin chatting with Pádraig Conan, who's the manager of the Gortine Dairy Farm. It's a joint effort with Shinnock, and Pádraig might talk about his experience as a share farmer and about the great year he's had up there the first year. So over to you, Gavin, again.
Perfect, thank you very much, Dermot. Perfect, Pádraig. Look, I suppose can we just start off there by giving us a brief background on yourself and maybe the share farming agreement between yourself and Shinnock.
Hello all, thanks for having me this evening, lads. Look, I suppose I've been around the place a good bit, managing farms and stuff like that. The opportunity came to go into Gortine, and I suppose, look, started there in January 2019. I suppose the share farming is different in one sense. It's two separate businesses running on the one farm. The split in Gortine is 60-40, so 60% of the costs and the profit are mine, and 40% of the costs and the profit are to Shinnock Estates. I suppose, look, the split is up there on the screen. The milk sales are split. The cost of feed, FERT, contracting, and the parlour running costs are split between us. I have all the stock sales, the vet and AI, heifer costs, and labour costs are mine. Sorry, I started in 2020, not 2019. Shinna keeps the BPS. They pay for line, major repairs, and maintenance and reclamation, so reseeding and stuff like that, they'll cover that.
So basically, you were covering the costs associated with your assets, and Shinnock were covering the costs associated with their assets.
Exactly, that's the simple way of putting it, Gavin, yeah.
Just moving on into the farm overview, Pádraig, you might just give us a brief overview there. Just, I suppose, John Sexton was obviously there beforehand, so just to give us just a small overview of the key figures there on the screen.
Yeah, there's 34 hectares in it. I'm after doing something wrong here now with the screen. 1 second. 34 hectares. We milk 94 cows on average. We started with 98. We culled 2 cows early on with problems, and we culled another 2 for later on in the year. So that brought our average to 94 for the year. Stocking rate was 2.76. We were probably running around 2.9 for most of the year. Kgs of milk solids per cow, 489. Kgs of milk solids per hectare weighed 1351, and grass utilised 12 tonne, and we would have grown around 15.
Fantastic. That's very good. Utilising 12 tonne is a phenomenal figure. Just before we move on, is the highlight. Look, I've put in there from the figure for 2019. We were comparing the price, the KPMG milk price. As I said, the Bandon average is 34.5, and the price that John Sexton received in 2019 was 38.77, so it was 4.27 cents above Bandon average. Look, to just highlight that before we moved on, and look, I suppose just to acknowledge John Sexton as well from the
absolutely, yeah,
couple of years as well. Just to move on then, farm performance there in 2020. I suppose the first thing that stands out to me really is the first figure there. Look, there's some phenomenal figures there. Look, 489 kilos of milk solids, 75 kilos of milk solids more compared to the average supplier in 2019. worth about €340 per cow. So look, you might just expand it small bit on your other KPIs there and how they are achieved.
Well, I would put down the kgs milk solids per cow. Basically, that I suppose when I was starting, I bought a lot of the cows early calving, so I had a lot of cows calved early. They have a lot of days in milk, and we got them to grass nearly as soon as they were calving. I suppose the herd as well was what you call it. The herd as well was plus on the percentages for solids. It's something I'd start to be fairly looking at when I was purchasing the cows. The percentages were good. I suppose that's important. I wouldn't have been overly worried about the breakdown in EBI for their milk. I'd start to put more of an emphasis on the fertility of it, you know, and the percentages. Look, the 6-week calving rate, as I said, when I was buying the herd, I was able to buy what I wanted, as in the earlier calving cows, and the heifers I purchased as well were early calving. So this year will be the test of that, being honest.
Just touching on the breeding season then from this year, Paul, I suppose, will you have a compact calving season this year as well?
Yeah, I suppose I bred for 13 weeks. But I think the extra 2 weeks of breeding, there's one cow and calf because of it. Like, look, we should still calve between 87 and 90% of the herd within 6 weeks this year. So,
look, I suppose, yeah, look, just looking into your rate there as we look, 8.3% empty is an impressive figure. You might just touch. You were saying 13 weeks breeding. I suppose, what did you do 6 weeks in weeks or what? You might just walk me through that.
Yeah, I did 6 weeks AI, and after the 6 weeks, I put in a Hereford bull, and I eyed for a further 2 weeks with that bull inside.
Yeah, and was it just the one stock bull you used in?
One stock bull, yeah, for the 96 cows, yeah.
Yeah, look, I suppose we'll just move on there now as well. But look, there's some very, very impressive figures there in fairness. So there can be no faults there anyway. Moving forward, sorry, I'm perfect there, yeah. Look, I suppose you kind of mentioned the importance of having right stock in the farm. We'll just give a brief overview of where you source the stock first aid there, as you mentioned from John Sexton, but you might just go through it there in a small bit more detail, and your strategy as well for replacement heifers.
Yeah, I suppose I was very lucky. I was able to buy 78 of the original cows that were on the farm. I suppose I would have thought it a win-win situation for me that the cows were used to the farm as well. So yeah, picked 78 of the earliest, and well, they wouldn't have all been the earliest, but the best of the cows I felt. I would have sourced another 20 heifers. So I suppose, look, like I said, I'd put a high score on fertility. So you can see there from the EBI, they're fairly well balanced on milk and fertility.
Yeah, look, I suppose the national average at 118, you're over 150. Look, you're in the top 10% nationally, the top 10% in the crop as well, and you're achieving those figures. Look, you're buying 149 kilos, or sorry, 479 kilos of milk solids as well. So look, you're achieving off the stock you have as well, like.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, the milk kgs there, it says minus 33, but like we still supplied 5,500 litres on average, like, so I wouldn't put much TASB on the minus there, like, you know.
Yeah, look, I actually had that highlighted there on the slide. Like, there seems to be a perception out there that you can't achieve those figures with a minus kgs, and that's just not. It's not true, which is the proof is in the pudding there with your results. But and just look at your PTAs then as well for your fat and protein at 0.17 and 0.1. Like, those are very, very strong PTAs, and they're coming across in the performance of the herd as well. Look, and it's fantastic to see that figure there of the EBI as well, 173. You're improving your figures as well for the in-calf heifers that are brought in, and that figure wasn't put into that report either, because, as you said, those calves those heifers were brought in into the herd there in the last couple of weeks, so they wouldn't have been in that December run. Look, we'll just move on there to your grass and performance. Look, you mentioned how it's driving performance, but We might just run through the key figures there and how you achieved it.
Yeah, the grass grown. Sure, look, I would have considered it a very good year, grass wise, bar the pinch. I suppose we had a pinch there for a week or so in June, beginning of June. 8 grazings per paddock. Yeah, look, I'd like to improve that, I suppose, going forward and try and get around the farm a bit faster. Grass walks, 34. I think there's probably room for improvement in that. Need to go a bit earlier with my grass walks. I suppose the beginning of the year, I'd sort of do an early walk and then sort of follow the spring rotation planner. But I just think I need to improve the number of grass walks there on that. Days at grass, 300. Yeah, once the cows started calving, they went out. We went out the 26th of January by day. I suppose a week later we were going out by night, 3 hours on and off, or 3 hours on, like, you know. We finished grazing the 30th of November by day, and we had finished grazing by night the 1st of November. So I suppose, look, it's a dry farm, well set up, so, you know, that made my life a lot easier too, to get out and get days of grass, like.
Yeah, no, just there was one fear. There's a question that have to come in there, Padraig. Sorry, I should probably touch on it there. How much meal did you feed this year, I suppose, and you might just run through when you fed it and how you strategically fed it as well.
Fed 680 kgs per cow. I suppose it's a bit more than I would have liked, but I'd feel a lot worse if it was more. I suppose I'd be excuse me. I suppose, look, there was feeders put into the parlour early on in the year, and my man was leaving. I asked him how much was 2 kilos on the feeders, and he said the number. I pushed the number, and a week later I said the bin is empty, there's something wrong here. So we were after feeding nearly 6 kilos of cow a day for a week. So I suppose the lesson was learned. We'll weigh the feeders anytime we adjust them. But I suppose fed 4 kilos most of the spring. I'd be a bit of a believer in feed early and feed hard. We fed 2 kilos in May. We had to feed hard the first 2 weeks of June. After that, we fed no ration until the last week of August. And the cows went on 2 kilos from the last week of August until dry off.
Look, it is fantastic performance of the level that went into the cows, like, so fair play for that. No, I suppose just looking forward and the grass and side of things there for 2021, I suppose, is there any certain plans you have you much of the farm in mind for reseeding, or I suppose clover on the farm as well? Will clover be going to those reseeded paddocks that you're planning to?
I suppose, yeah, clover will go in all right. I suppose there's probably 10 acres I'd like to get reseeded, but there would be a lot of clover in some of the paddocks, and I'm probably trying to cut back a bit on nitrogen this year on those paddocks and see will the clover come. You know, there's 10 or 12% clover in them, and we'll see can we get that up a bit by easing back on the nitrogen, you know.
Yeah, no, look, if fairness, look, there's some fantastic performance there. 15 tons of dry matter per hectare is a phenomenal figure. Just to move on there now, I'm just conscious of time as well with there, Padraig. Just to move on to labour, look, I suppose very, very topic coming up to the spring as well. You might just run through your labour and your system and how it works for you. Yeah,
I suppose I do 99% of the milkings and stuff. I think I had a relief milker in for I had her in for maybe 15 milkings this year. There was no place to go, so it was a good year to stay working yourself. My nephew would be available at weekends to help, and I suppose last spring I was very lucky. He was in transition year, so he got his week's work experience and his week's midterm, so that was a help. I suppose there's only one tractor in the yard. I use that for scraping and pushing in the silage. Very lucky. We have a very good contractor there that comes in and feeds and does those sorts of jobs. I suppose the herd is strange in one sense, is that I'm selling probably all the calves. I suppose my first year in, I thought it would be too difficult to tie up that cash in that stock and find somebody to rear them. It worked out very well in the fact that what I sold the calves for more or less paid for my replacements to maintain the herd. So I'll do it again this year, and we'll look at it again towards the end of the year.
Yeah, look, I suppose I think it's something that a lot of suppliers should be kind of looking at there. Of it's definitely an option in for fellas to maybe contract out a small bit of machinery work and stuff like that, and focus, especially in the spring, which is there's so much going, and just to focus on the areas that are making money. Then in your breeding, your best management, and get those right, and you can contract out that work then. Just to move on to the financial performance, then, Padraig, you might just, I don't know, PowerPoint is a bit behind. Financial performance, you might just take a quick run through the profit manner figures there from 2020 flowing.
Yeah, well, I'll go through per cow, Gavin. Is that all right?
That's perfect, yeah. Perfect out,
yeah. So, gross output, we had 2184. The variable cost came in at 793. I suppose the amount of ration would have fed will push it up a bit. Fixed costs 317. Total costs 1109, and the net profit per cow was 1074.
Yeah, look, fantastic performance there. From look even looking at the profit per hectare now, as the industry target is €2,500. You're achieving that, and you're well above it at 2,970. So it's fantastic performance affairs. I suppose we might just touch onto, we can touch on who the factors that you felt that achieved those figures, but we might just touch onto the returns from farm then. So you might just have a quick run through that there, Padraig, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. The total milk sales 205,983. Stock sales there includes the bull that I sold, the cull cows and calves, all calf sales. Total farm expenses 87,702. Stock purchases, the 13,000 is for my 10 in calf heifers. And so look, basically I got 66,000, and Shinnock Estates would have got 51,564 before the BPS. Now, out of that 66,000, I must pay myself, my debt, and purchase my replacements.
No, that's fine. Look, I'm just conscious of time as well. But so look, no, fantastic. Thank you very much, Padraig. We'll take a couple of questions there. So that was the last slide there. So I know there's a couple of questions after coming through there, and the questions and answers. So you could type in more if there's another question you want to ask. So I will just hand it back to Dermot there for a couple of questions if we've time.
Yeah, Gavin can keep an eye on that. I suppose one thing, Padraig, there, your grassland management is obviously excellent. You might just go through your silage system and what you do. Is it two-cut system or baling or what? You might just go through that.
Yeah, I suppose, look, I would stop about 12 hectares of the farm for first cut, and then after that I would there'd be nothing specifically stocked for second cut. Paddocks that come ahead of the cows would be cut that way, and I suppose that helps my grass quality then for my milk solids, because rather than topping paddocks, I suppose I'm taking the bales off them and keeping good grass, trying to keep good grass in front of the cows the whole time,
And what would your rotation be like, or what, you go in at 14?
Look, I suppose when grass be high, when growth rates be high, we'd be around 18 days rotation, and then coming into June, we'd be pushing the 21 days and try and hold it at that, and extend it as to certain times of the year then when it's needed, like. But usually 18 to 21 days, Dermot, would be what I'd be aiming for.
Okay. Just performance, in fairness.
Just one or two questions after Padraig. Average lactation of the herd.
Average lactation of the herd is 3.2, I think, or something like that. Yeah.
Your increase from milk solids compared from other years compared to 2019 and 2020. I suppose they were the same cows. So what is the performance gone from 2016, 2017, 2018 compared to 2019 and 2020?
What were the previous 3 years before that?
Yeah, so look, tis basically what's driving the performance the last 2 years, which will be is the question.
I'd say the herd maturing, Gavin.
Herd
Simple
maturing,
as.
yeah.
Herd maturing would be a huge thing to
Yeah,
keep
no, I
older
definitely agree
cows
in
in
that
the
one.
system.
I can't seem to see any more questions coming through there.
I think with one there, somebody asked what litres per heifers and cows. 5,500 litres was the herd average.
No, I can't seem to be. Look, there's one more actually here. Sorry. Did Padraig use did you use protected urea in your fertilizer program in 2020?
I didn't in the first round, but I would have after that. I suppose any areas of the farm that were low in P and K, I was targeting the 18612, and the protected urea was going elsewhere then.
Perfect. I can't seem to see any more questions coming through there. No, just to clarify one bit there. There's no. There's just a slippery tongue by myself for Padraig there that there's actually no sharing the profit. Is splitting the costs and milk receipts. Just to clarify.
That's right.
Yeah. No, look, I suppose if there's any other questions there, I probably could have missed one or two there as well. So we can take those at the end. So look, I'd like to thank yourself, Padraig, there, and we can move on to Dan's presentation there.
No hassle. Thanks, Gavin.
Gavin.
Yeah, I understand.
Perfect there, Dan. I'm going to have to stop my screen so you can share away there, right, sir?
So now its stuff should come up there now. Is that coming through there now, Gavin, is that?
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
Yeah, spot on, Dan, yeah.
And job. Thanks very much to Brandon for the invitation, ladies and gentlemen, and the best luck for the year ahead in here. But look, I'm here to talk. I'm going to have a quick chat, lads, on the chlorine free that we're facing for the year ahead. We'll have a bit chat on the milk recording following on from Gavin's presentation there on how to drive your business forward, and we'll have a chat in and a small bit in on the selective dry cow and stuff. Look, the chlorine free, lads. When we look at it at the moment, it's coming in now as of this year across the board. And the chemicals that we have basically is caustic soda, which is our cleaner, or Hydrogen Plus, or liquid caustic soda. We've descalers in the form of acids, which remove the mineral deposits from the tank and the plant. And chlorine was our disinfectant. That's what killed the bacteria within the plant itself and contained the TBCs inside. And to be honest, the chlorine allowed us to get away with murder. But the problem is it's creating these chemicals like trichloromethanes and chlorates, which are causing problems with the end product. So our new disinfectant now is peracetic acid. That's our new disinfectant in our wash regime, and how we use that is going to have a huge impact on, number one, keep our TBCs down. But peracetic acid, lads, is a great help in controlling thermodurics. When we go cleaning a plant, lads, we have 4 things that help us clean a plant: the temperature of the water we use, the turbulence, the agitation within the plant itself, the time, 8 to 10 minutes, how long you're actually physically, and the titration. That's the amount of chemical we're using. If you look at the temperature, look, we're looking for about 75, 80 degrees, right? The turbulence, what you're looking for, and the turbulence is basically what you're looking for. If you have an electric milk pump, you want the suction hose constantly covered with solution so that the vacuum is maintained inside the plant, because that creates the suction. If you have a diaphragm pump, if that's plumbed properly, when you suck all out the chemical into the plant, the suction hose should be actually connected to a return milk pipe. So it's an enclosed system so that the vacuum is held up. In a lot of diaphragm pumps, they're starved of detergent and it's hopping around inside in the track, and the turbulence is killed back in the plant in because the vacuum is dropped. Some of you may have to fix, put in an electric milk pump. There could be a case of point that's above and Shinnok. That's the type of way it's designed above and Shinnok. He's a diaphragm pump, but he has electric milk pumped in for the wash regime. The time, 8 to 10 minutes, because why I'm saying 8 to 10 minutes is because once the temperature drops below 50 degrees, the chemical falls out, the dirt falls out of solution and starts sticking back to the plant again. Titration, the amount of chemical, and we'll go through that, and the track capacity, this is a big issue that's going forward. So when we're removing chlorine, we compensate it by these issues. We'll have to up the caustic concentrations inside our plant. What does that mean? So if I have 100 litres of water, I should be looking at about 1% solution inside that. That means I'm putting 1 litre of detergent into 100 litres of water. Getting it at 1%. I'll get away with a bit less on a hot water solution. Okay? If it's a hot wash. We are going to need more hot washes. 7 hot washes per minimum on liquid castics per week, especially on the more sophisticated plants, cluster removers, meters, these type of things. If you're using powder, you can get away with less hot washes. You could probably half that, maybe 3 hot washes a week. In my opinion, lads, any of you that are manually washing the plant, you use powder. Because if you're using powder, you can reuse it that night. Liquid caustic, you cannot reuse it. And that is one of the main causes of fellas running into trouble with chlorine-free. And we'll go through that a bit later. Big problem at farm level is we do not have enough for hot water. So when you're doing a hot wash, you need to get a thermometer. The lads will try and get it. They probably have them inside in the stores. You should get them so that it's not the starting temperatures important. We want 70, 80 degrees hot wash because the end temperature must be 50 degrees when I stop washing after 8 to 10 minutes. And if I'm putting that into a cold plant, I need 85 degrees to maintain that. And that's why we're looking to try and get fellas to have enough hot water that if I could rinse the plant with lukewarm water, it's keeping my plant warm. And then when I go I'm not losing heat capacity water, trying to heat the place back up again. Circulating too long is another big issue. Usually, look, descaling, we'll have to go about 3 descales per week. That's kind of the recommendation. But if you're using peracetic acid in the final rinse, that's an acid. So if you use that in the final rinse every morning and every evening, you'll probably get away with 1 descale a week. It depends on the water that you have. 1 descale a week would probably do it if peracetic acid is going in to every morning, every evening. The biggest thing with the peracetic acid is when you're finished washing your plant, you suck up half the water first to get the caustic out of it, and then add the acid into it. Don't add the acid into the full vat of water because you're putting an acid with an alkaline as react, and you'll get a kind of a slimy scum building up inside in the plant. You cannot recycle liquid detergents. You can with the powder. So any of you that are manually washing, you should go on powder. That would be my opinion, because at least it gives you the option of going twice. These are a couple of wash regimes that Dave Gleason has. This is a typical note set for you. So look, I'll go hot in the morning or cold. So I got 3 hot washes in a week with my powder detergent at 70, 80 degrees. 3 and the rest are cold. I'll reuse them. I'll put peracetic acid into the final rinse. I'll reuse that night and dump it. And then in my final rinse, I'll put in my peracetic acid. The biggest thing here that we're missing in a lot of places, you need 3 gallons or 14 litres to rinse a plant properly. And I'll show you couple of pictures of where that doesn't happen. And if you don't have automatic washers, this is one Dave Gleason uses on all the farms above Moore Park. He finds fantastic results with it, where he's basically using a liquid detergent on 4 occasions a week and an acid 3 times a week. They're done hot. In the evening, he'll do a liquid detergent cold every evening. So the hot is done in the morning after your nitrate electricity. He's doing his 3 descales, and he's putting his peracetic. He has the peracetic acid in coming in the cold water. The cold water rinse twice a day. He has a separate pump. But for anyone with automatic washes, that is a very good system. Very foolproof. You'll be running TVCs 2, 3, 4 consistently, no problem with that kind of a wash regime. Bulk tanks, and if we were automatic bulk tanks, they're usually on the pre-chlorine. They would have been programmed at a 4-to-1 ratio or 3-to-1 ratio. What do I mean by that? I mean, it's 4 collections that would have got a caustic wash and 1 collection of descaler, or 3 caustic and 1 descaler. In chlorine-free, that must be a 2-to-1 ratio. 2 collections with your detergent and 1 collection, with your descale. That may have to go to 1-to-1 if your water's hard. Down this part of the country, if you're on main supply, the 2-to-1 will be perfect. But that's one of the main areas that's catching fellas. They're putting the liquid caustic detergent drum into it. They're just shoving a pose into it. It's working at a 4-to-1 ratio or 3-to-1 ratio. They're not getting that as a supplier, and they're getting cut 3 to 4 months down the line with their high TBCs inside this. Okay. The viscosity of these caustics now are up at 20-29% high sodium hydroxide. So they're a thicker type of solution. The other solution that you would have had probably about 17-18% caustic. So they don't flow as well. So you have to get them calibrated. The second thing you could do is you could have just every time it's washed, you use the liquid caustic soda, and the second pump, you just have it take you up the peracetic acid that goes into the final rinse. That is my descaler, and that works perfect. Some tank manufacturers don't like it because it's hard on the pumps. They don't like the peracetic acid, so they prefer this option. You know, so you want to talk to your tank manufacturer. You can get these all-for-one products, where the one product will do everything. It's a descaler, a cleaner, like the DSNO, SN, or one of those products. Working well in the tanks, mixed enough results on the parlour, but working well in the tanks. That's the general feedback we're saying. So it's a descaler, It's a disinfectant and it's a cleaner, all in one. Handy if you have the ball, screw and ball ones, you could use it from that point of view as well. Look, this is the type of thing what you're looking at when you're getting slug washes coming through, insufficient water coming through, and you just not enough clearing the top of the line. You can see, well, that's the extreme, that build up of the cream on the top of the lines. This is usually where you'd see in a 3-inch line where the slug wash isn't cleaning the lines. Like what you're looking for, the slug wash, any of you that have them, it leaves a blast of water down. You'd see it hitting the receiving jar down at the bottom. And what you're trying to do is create this wave that's cleaning the top of the line. There should be about 12 to 14 of those in every wash cycle. So you should be hearing one of those every 40 seconds in a 10-minute wash. And when you hear the blast air coming in at the back of the line, that should keep blasting air until it hits the jar below. If it gives up halfway through, that wave will collapse and won't clean the line, and you could get issues like this. You see where this was all clean back along here, but he was getting caught at the bottom because it was dying halfway through. Okay, this is typical. You see, look, check your tracks. 3 gallons per unit to rinse it. 2 gallons per unit or 9 litres to wash the plant. Common problems, lads. It's the tracks just aren't big enough. Like by right, the rinse track should be 1/3 as big as the wash track, but they're always the same size, and they're usually spec to wash it. That's what I usually see if fellas are recycling detergents. You'll see the creamy deposits inside here being put back into the plant, and that's a recipe for disaster with TBCs, especially in chlorine-free. It must be crystal clear before you put the detergent through the plant. If you're seeing that kind of cloudiness inside the detergent that you're going to be reusing tonight, you're going to run into trouble. What issues are we seeing at the moment? If you run into trouble, let's say you get a TBC back from the lads, or Thermaduric, and say, Jesus, this thing's after going mad, 50, 60,000. What you do is you double the caustic, double the rate, wash it, dump it, double the acid rate. Don't do it hot because it'll blacken all the rubbers. Just do it warm, and do it tonight at double the rate, and that'll reset the clock. But there's probably something wrong with your wash rate. If you've been running for a number of months with a wash regime from the lads, and next thing it goes wrong, first of all, there's something wrong with the plant. That's the first thing you go after, not the chemical, the plant. There's some seal, there's some valve gone wrong with it. If you could get a position of rinsing the plant with lukewarm water, this is a huge problem, lads, at this time of the year when we milk the fresh calving cows, the bee stingy cows at the end, and then we put water 3 and 4 degrees, and the fat congeals inside in the plant, and you put cold detergent through that, and or warm or hot detergent, you're losing too much of the heat capacity. And if you could rinse the plant with lukewarm water in the spring and the fall here, Jesus has some difference in it, because you're removing the fat at source and you're keeping the heat inside in the plant. Don't reuse the liquid detergents. Watch the dump bucket sets. This catches more fellas because you're taking change the tubing. The tubing that's on the top of the dump bucket will catch an awful lot of it. After you're finished with the dump bucket, take it away off, and when you're running the detergent to waste, just run it into the dump bucket and let it sit there for the day. It's cleaning the bucket. The dump bucket is catching an awful lot of fellas for these spikes and TBCs and Thermadurics, because that milk tube is connected on up to the swing over arm or whatever, and it's taking all this bacteria into the line. Then you must wash the dump line every milking, whether being used or not. Make sure you have enough detergent. Check the capacity track, linked by breadth by height in meters. That's your multiply one by the other. That's cubic meters. Multiply 1,000 liters. That'll tell you how much is in the track. Check the bulk tank, especially the pipes, for taking up the detergents. So what I would do now in the next week, lads, some of you haven't started, some of you probably have started this. When you're stopped, you should hot wash the plant once a week. It's a great job. You're lackadaisical, you've time to, you'll see trouble. Hot wash the tank once a week. Just do it once a week. You'll be walk around, stay around the place. You'll see if there's leaks, if there's tubes cracked, if there's liners cracked, if there's short air tubes cracked. You've time to see it. You'll see that there's no unit being starved. It's a great thing to do from now on. Hot wash the plant once a week from now until you start calving. Pull off the long milk tubes and put your finger inside. If they come out black, change them. I'd really consider doing silicone tubing. It's lovely and soft. It'll put up with a rake of hardship. The only thing with silicone tubing is inclined to crack at the back of the claw piece. So maybe cut it maybe 6 inches longer than what you'd actually require, so that heifers hopping up and down could crack them. Hot water, look at your hot water capacity or tracks. And I definitely, lads, I'd be looking at powder for manually washing. Will I skip through Gavin the whole lot of it and we'll take questions at the end? I suppose we'll hand this to it. Will I scoot more away onto it?
Yeah, work away, Dan. Work away, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Look, we'll take a few questions then at the end. That's just a bit on the chlorine. I'll do a bit on the selective, lads. You've seen there now, they want a 50% reduction in antibiotic use. This has been driven by human medicine, the antimicrobial resistance. It's one of the KPIs, let's say, and the new CAP coming forward. And what they're basically doing is the human medicine is saying, look, we cannot, selective Dryco is falling into this. The blanket use of antibiotics where you're using CTC powder for calves, antibiotics on cows, anything where you're using blanket, especially in the pig and the poultry as well. But in the ruminants, the big one for us on the dairy side is the CTC powder to the calves and blanket Dryco. So we can, as of January 2022, so we have another Dryco next year, we will not be able to use antibiotics on all our herd. We will only be able to selectively dry it off. We'll be able to use sealer and everything for antibiotics and only a proportion. The biggest thing for us, lads, is our herd suitable. How in God's do we know if we're not milk according? Was Gavin had the stat is 42% of the suppliers are not on milk according? And you see, milk according, lads, you'll have to bite the bullet in this one. You'll have to see how in God's name am I getting on before you're forced into it in 2022. You have got to bite the bullet in 2021 to see how in God's name am I getting on while I have the luxury of an antibiotic in the autumn of 2021 to get my house in order before 2022. But you can't do that without milk according. And like if you look at these two herds, they're like Phil and Tap. He did his milk very good herd. He's doing selective Dryco. The herd in the bottom did selective Dryco. But you see where he did, he made in walls of it. He went from a average 191 in July cell count, but he ended up with 494 in July of 2020. And you can see how this thing can go wrong. This man has milk according. The fella that was very good. He had very low infection inside the herd. Only 5 out of 132 cows were high for 2 recordings. That means over 200,000. There's only 1 cow went high, so you can see a fantastic herd. Whereas this second herd, 56 out of these 150 cows were over 200,000. His infection rate was way too high to be considering selective drying off. So if you imagine being forced into selective drying off without this information, it's one way of destroying your herd of cows if you don't have the data. And like if you look here, this is one thing for some of the lads that have milk according. Now we can see how you did in last year's milk according. So you can see there now in this herd, only 5 out of 78 cows went high. So he dried off 78 cows the previous autumn, and only 5 of them calved down high. So he did a great job at drying off. Whereas you look at this man, 8 out of 22, 36%. The target's 10. So a third of his cows, he infected a third of his cows. But because he was late milk according, only 34% out of 165 cows are in the calculation. So you must do your first milk according within 60 days of the first cow calving. For some of you that are not milk according, you won't be have that because they won't be able to compare to last year's data. But get started in it. You take this. This is a different farmer. No, he takes in his cases of mastitis to that number. He just takes cow 1169, and that number, and it shows up with this. And he had an outbreak of mastitis here in April in the fresh calvers. And we were able to see that was his calving boxes were the problem. There was a build-up of infection. He wasn't cleaning it out. And he had a massive outbreak of mastitis, so a lot of sick cows. But from that, we were able to see the pattern. Here was only a couple of chronic cows that he culled, got rid of, and the whole thing settled down towards the end of the year. You can record your drying off. You can record your drying off. You can record your treatments. But the biggest thing here, lads, is what milk recording is going to build you. Gavin outlined ideally exactly what it's going to do for your business. You look here, the profitability. You look at the milk kgs, Gavin. I had a look at on the 27th of December every month, ICBF put up that 5-star report. And if you log into ICBF, you'll see it on the start every month. For 2020, it was only up 2 days yesterday. I had a quick look. You're averaging 411 kgs of milk solids at the end of November. And the top 10% were 510. And even at 4 kilos, and you're getting away more than €4. The difference between the average and the top 10% for 100 cow herd was 38,400. Exactly Gavin's type of figures. And if you could do it on your percentages, there's another approximately 8,000. So you can see there's money, there are targets that you can be aiming towards, but you can't do it without milk according. You stop breeding from the pups inside the herd. If you all know dam lines, poor cow will breed a poor heifer. So if you stop breeding from the bottom 20% of the cows in the herd, that's a massive start. Stop pulling heifers out of poor cows and put your, like Gavin was saying there, use your high EBI on your better cows. And like you have your ioanase testing, you hear there, like look at the mark, you can do your ioanase testing through it. Carberry pushing big time at this with the infant formula and the markets that they're on. If you want to sell stock later on, look at Padraig. Look at the EBI in his stock. Look at the value in his stock. His calves are able to buy his replacement heifers like that. And he's able to do that because of the data and the figures he's throwing out. So look at the cash he's able to throw out from that point of view, from his stock sales. The antibiotic use, lads, this selective drying off, lads, antibiotic use, the amount, you see how hard it is to get tube. Sinolax is gone, Tetradelta is gone, Leo Yellow is gone. Tetradelta come back in March, I think. There's difficulty in getting some dry coat tubes. Not a mind to say our ability to use them. Lads, don't underestimate this thing. This thing is going to be the elephant in the room. This, number one, we won't get them, and number two, we won't be able to use them. Don't be flippant on this thing. It's this antimicrobial resistance is coming down the tracks this speed it's coming down at is frightening. If you were selecting your heifers coming to the herd, you can genomically test them, you can breed from the best to get the best, like breed the best to the best. It's so true. You have your insurance policy against TB breakdowns, none of us want to see it. But by God, it's some, if it ever visits your door, it's a great cushion to have, you know. So it's just, look, these are the kind of figures you're looking at. For technician coming out there, the kind of figures you're looking at. Say €10 per cow. If I'm milking 100 cows, that's €1,000. If I have a cow and she's turning over 500 kilos of milk solids or 550, we'll say that's €2,000, and you have another cow doing 300, that's 200 kilos of milk solids at €4 or €5 a kilo milk solids. One cow has paid for it. That's €1,000, the difference between them. That's my milk according paid for. So, look, it's something to really consider, and I think it's something, you know, forget even cell count mastitis. It's just your overall business, like Gavin has articulated. And when you get your milk according back, ring up Gavin or your Chagas lads or whoever you want, and go through the milk according with him. Go to get into Gavin and get him to come out and go through the records and distinguish what's involved inside it. All right. Okay, Gavin. I'll stop sharing there now. So.
Fantastic. And look, there's a couple of questions after coming through for yourself there, so I'll get you to answer them. Just on the hot water options, I suppose, what size water heater is needed pre-rinse the tank with warm water and then wash with hot wash? I suppose, look, that depends on your plant size and your bull tank size, but just hot water options there for, I suppose.
Yeah, good question. No, right, we'll do it a couple of ways. If I'm heating water on day rate, it's costing me €2 per 100 litres of water. If I'm doing it on night rate, it's €100 per 100 litres of water. Gas is about 90 cent, nitrate is about 90 cent, and oil is about 70 cent. Oil will get dearer, right? Okay, I have a 20 unit parlour. We'll just say 20 for the crack. We'll say 10 unit parlour for the crack. I need 10 litres per unit to wash that plant with hot water. So that's 100 litres straight away. I'd want some water then to rinse the plant with lukewarm water. The problem you have, lads, is it depends on the type of system that you have. Because if I have a pressurized system, which is just an ordinary immersion boiler, let's say, it's the cold driving out the hot. So if I have 300 litre cylinder and I'm draining out water, I'll probably only get, 160, 170 litres of hot water out because the cold is driving out the hot. So that's why the gas is such a very good system, because it's instant hot. I will get the exact amount coming through it. So if you're looking at a cylinder, lads, buy the cylinder, in my own opinion, and the way the thing is going forward, I would buy a very good quality cylinder. I would spend money on it. I would get it with 2 or 3 coils that can be retrofitted later on into a solar type system. I would say the way the thing is going will be grant-aided for solar. The cylinder will be your battery, and that will be your block of hot water inside in the system. That's my opinion. I'd be buying a 500 litre cylinder with 2 or 3 coils, welded insulation, you know, or else you're looking at the gas or the oil type systems. The Burco or the Geyser is another one, the oil type systems as well. All right, I hope that kind of answers.
Perfect. Just another question there as well, Dan. Is there a need for a rinse in between the detergent wash and final peracetic acid wash? Should peracetic rinse okay cold?
Okay, so I've done my detergent, I've run it around, I put it back into the truck, and I'm going to do my final rinse with the peracetic acid. You must do a rinse before you put in the peracetic acid. So rather than using more water, what we find good is suck up about a third or a half the water that's in the cylinder or in the truck, and take out the suction hose and just let the receiving jar clear itself. And then put your 1, 2, 3 squirts of whatever serpent or peracetic acid into the final rinse. Drop down in your suction hose and suck up the peracetic acid solution, run it through the plant, out to waste, and you hit stop. let the stain sit inside in the plant. That'll dissolve into water and oxygen. It smells like hot stuff, but it's hydrogen peroxide and peracetic acid and acetic acid vinegar. That's what's inside it. And that evaporates to water and oxygen. You do not have to rinse that before milking the following morning.
Just another one there as well, Dan. Your opinion on the diesel geysers or the dairy geyser, they're available through the co-op. Your opinion on those?
Yeah, geysers, they're a good job. They're flexible. You have your instant. They have the flow rates. They're an instant hot water. A couple of things I would say. I would say is just when you're installing them, just with the fumes, just make sure you have fumes going out to the external source. The flow rates, just make their spec to the flow rates that you have, 30 litres per minute. If there's on a flow rate of 30 litres and I require 200 litres of water, we'll just say 200 litres on 20 unit plant. That's going to take 8 minutes to fill that truck at 30 litres a minute. Or sorry, it'll take seven minutes. So just make sure your flow rates are right. The feedback, I would say, very positive. Fellas take them out. They can hook up the power hose. They can use it for calf hoses. Feedback is positive, to be fair.
Perfect. Look, I suppose if there's any other questions there for myself for Patrick as well, if there's just one question I just want to address, there's more of a point there as well. Look, it was a very good point. Should farmers consider buying in high EBI replacements from top performing herds to accelerate genetic gain performance? Yeah, look, there is farmers doing it, and look, it definitely is an option for farmers as well. Skip generations of or trying to breed from low performing cows and low herd EBI. It's definitely an option as well, so it can be explored. So look, there doesn't seem to be many more questions coming through unless I'm after missing one or two. So look, I might just hand over to George there as well. Just
sorry, Gavin there. Yeah, just before George comes in there, I wonder, I suppose the Thermaduric, there are two things, I suppose. First of all, Darren Crowley will be available to Carberry suppliers going forward from this year through the co-ops now for advice where there's a problem with quality. But one thing you didn't touch on so much there was the Thermaduric, and where there's a Thermaduric problem on a farm, what's the basic cause of it, or
okay,
where would you look first, Dan?
Yep, fair point. Right. Okay, so right, the Thermadurics, lads, what are they? They're basically bacteria that survive pasteurization. We pasteurize the milk below at Carberry, and we do another count, and it's the bacteria that survive that pasteurization is my Thermaduric bacteria. There is 0 Thermadurics inside the udder of a cow. It's on that udder of a cow that comes into her. So what you're looking at, if I have a Thermaduric problem, if your count is around 500 to 1,000, right, or around the 500, it's generally something small. 1 unit not washing right, something small. If you're talking about 1,000 to 2,000 of a count, it's something where all the milk is coming in contact with, right? So you're looking at the receiving jar, plate cooler, the tank. They are the 3 main issues that are caused. Thermadurics is what I would do is I would open the claw piece. The first thing what I do is with a Thermaduric type problem is first of all I start and I open the claw piece and I rub the inside of the jar or the little glass jar and see is there any kind of a slippery feel inside in that. If there is, that's probably the starting point. There's a problem with the Thermadurics inside in the plant there. That should be squeaky clean inside in it. Is there black inside in the rubber? You're coming back up then into the milk line. You're looking then at the receiving jar, the dump line, the sanitary trap, looking for anything that's coming through that. Do not go ripping plate coolers. Take a sample of milk before the plate cooler and take a sample of milk after the plate cooler. Put it into a jar of cold water, ice water, and that will tell you whether there's a Thermaduric problem with the plate cooler or not. If you want to identify a problem with Thermadurics inside in a plant, when the first row of cows are being left off, you take a sample of milk from the drain valve before the plate cooler. That's sample number 1. When the last row of cows are being left off, you take a sample of milk from the same spot. That's sample number 2. When I'm finished milking, I have a new tank now when I've done this. I take a sample of milk from the tank. That's sample number 3. And in 2 days' time or 3 days' time, I take a sample of milk from the tank. That's sample number 4. If the plant is clean, sample number 1 will be low. If sample number 2 is high, it means the cows are dirty. If the first 2 are low and sample number 3, which is the first one I took in the tank, was high, that means the plate cooler is the problem. If the first 3 are low and sample number 4 is high, it's the tank. And it's a great way of finding where the problem is before you go ripping. If that makes sense. But peracetic acid, lads, is a fantastic tool in the army to control thermodurics.
So, yeah. Thanks, Dan. If
There's
there's
just
nothing
one-
else, sorry, over to Jorno.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to back up Don's point there on the peracetic acid, because we'd be using that in the factories ourselves. It is the chemical that kills all the bugs. If the surviving pasteurization, it could be a spore former which protects it, and the peracetic acid just burns through the wall of the spore. Just to touch on one other point there that Don was alluding to there as well, around heating of hot water. I suppose one investment there that I would just say is a no-brainer for every person on the call this evening is PV solar panels. And I'm not sure if Kieran Coughlin is on the meeting tonight or not, but I know he wrote a very good article about it in the Examiner at one stage. At the moment, if you can get a TAMS grant on PV solar panels, with your tax write-off, you're basically getting a 70% discount off your purchase price, which is an unbelievable discount, really. It makes sense for an ordinary household with no TAMS grant and tax write-off. You get about a 13 to 15% return on your money for a household. I'm doing it myself at the moment. But for a farmer, the return on investment is up around the 30 to 40%. So that's one I think people should definitely look into. We've installed it in the shop in Inniskeen and in Kinsale for farmers to have this point to go and look at the system. And as Don was alluding to there earlier on about the hot water being the battery, what he means there is if you're drawing power from the solar and you're not using it, it automatically diverts to your hot water tank and heats your hot water for free, basically. So definitely would encourage everyone to look into PV solar, because, you know, especially as well from the environmental point of view going forward, it's the right thing to do for the environment, and it's the right thing to do for your pocket. Just in regards to the seminar tonight, it's our first dairy seminar by Zoom, and you know, there's a wonderful turnout. There was about 110 people online there at one stage. We still have 102 attendees online, which is brilliant. I think it's higher than we've ever had in person, or as high anyway as we've ever had in person. So thanks to everyone for turning up tonight. It's brilliant that we have this facility to be able to do this seminar, and I think it's worked really well. I'd like to thank the speakers. Padraig, thanks very much, Padraig. I'm sure you know you were a bit nervous this evening. I know you're not a public speaker by occupation, but you did really well, so I'd like to congratulate you. Because, you know, I must say myself, Gortine Farm is a standout example for the average farm size in West Cork and in Ireland. Like, you know, if the average herd size is still 85 cows roughly, you know, and Gortine is milking about 95, I can't understand why more people don't look more deeply at what Gortine is doing. I mean, it basically started from a standing start roughly 5 years ago, and it's in the top, you know, 5%, maybe even the top 2% of performance in the country. It's phenomenal. You're like either the Messi or Ronaldo, like of dairy farming. You're up there with those guys. So you know, and when you go up there and look at it, and you talk about lean, you know, the way the farm is laid out, and I know the facilities maybe got a bit of criticism at one stage, but they've worked pretty well. I'm sure the money that's been made, we're going to continue to invest in the facilities there, and you can well afford it now going forward. But it's a fantastic operation. It really delivers for the farmer. So I'd encourage everyone to look deeply at what Gortine is doing. It's a great example. Don, thanks very much. And as Dermot alluded there, Don is going to be available more to the farmers of West Cork through Carbery and Bandon Co-op, and you can basically book appointments now through Leanne at the Co-op with Don if you want to explore any any more of what Don was covering in his presentation. I'm sure Don wants to get the request. That's the whole idea of the initiative we're doing through Carbery. And again, Don is the top man in his field, so we're very glad to have him available to us. I'd like to thank Gavin there specifically for putting together a great panel, number one, and a great forum this evening. So congratulations on that, Gavin. It's your first one, and it's a great one. I'd also like to congratulate the broader Agri team in Bandon Co-op, because I know they contributed to the presentations and everything that we're doing. So congratulations as well to Dennis O'Malan and the rest of the team there. Thanks very much. I'd like to thank the board of Bandon Co-op, because, you know, we're not the biggest co-op in the world, but we do think big. We like to think, you know, modern. We like to think progressive. So we invest in aiding our farmers to be more profitable, and that's why we have people like Gavin in our team, and that's why we invest in technology and we invest in seminars like this. So thanks very much to the board for that. Look, I would just like to give a 1 minute update on to everybody present just on the current COVID situation in the co-op, because like everyone else now, we do have a few positives around the company. It's not affecting any of our service, be it in the co-op or at Bandon Vale, but there are a lot of people isolating because of COVID-19, and you know, it is a precarious time. And it's a really important time, you know, that this next 3 weeks, I think, is really important to abide by the social distance rules. So we have reiterated to all our drivers and our reps and everyone that comes into contact with people that social distance is the key. You know, business doesn't have to stop, but it can't be at the expense of social distance. So it is about using a small bit of cop on as well, and we're trying to do that. It's been very good for us so far. We've done as well as anybody in the country, but we don't want to fall now at the last 3 weeks. I do believe myself that when we get into February, hopefully the vaccines will be coming on strong. I think there's a magic number of 100,000 vaccines a week is what I'm watching out for. I think once we get to that number, you know, this thing will hopefully start to slowly but surely get behind us then, because, you know, the 100,000 a week number, I use the analogy of it's a bit like digging a hole with an excavator then rather than a shovel. You know, we're really going after it fast at that stage. And finally, I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year. Normally we'd be together for this night, and you know, we always compliment everybody for coming in by having a little goodie bag of our products and what have you. And I'd just like to say to people, we have your names, and I promise that we're going to follow up with the people who attended tonight, and we will follow up with a little token of our appreciation as fast as we can. So thanks very much, and back to you, Gavin.
Thank you very much, Ger. Look, I suppose I just hand over to Dermot there if there's anything else from, I suppose, I'm just conscious of time there. If there's anything else you want to cover, or are we happy enough to leave it for the night?
Thanks, Gavin. Yeah, I suppose I'd just like to join Ger there in wishing everybody a happy new year for one thing, and stay safe for as long as we can. I suppose the end is near, and there's a lot of stuff around at the moment, but you know, if we all behave ourselves for a few weeks, we can make a big difference. Just obviously join Ger as well, and thanking the speakers tonight. I think that's done, and compliment them on a great show. Just to mention, I suppose Carbery did a wellness night there. Was it 2 years ago? I think it was, and they hope to repeat that around the week of the 18th to the 20th of January. I don't think the date is finalised yet, but that'll be on Zoom as well, or same as this. So it might be worth tuning into. And I suppose as a co-op, we might do something, a slightly different stand on things, maybe towards the end of the month as well. We just have a few thoughts on the sustainability part of things, so we'll see about that. So other than that, I suppose tonight was about just that we're a bit behind the curve on the solids. We're leaving money after us, and we should give a bit of thought at this time of the year. Gavin is available to help anybody who wants help. He's very approachable and he's very good, and I'd strongly recommend anybody who's, you know, who feels they need a bit of help to go to him. Grass measuring, if nothing else, you know. So on that note, thanks to everybody, and I wish you all a happy new year. Thanks for attending. Good night.
Thank you.
Don.
Thanks. Well, let's start on.